Well, I mean, the answer is that I missed them. That's the most important part, because this particular studio, a lot of amazing things have happened here, and so I missed them too. Where have I been? I've been around actually since 2010. I thought I wanted to retire from journalism, and I didn't really know what to do, so I took a little 2 years break. Then I went to Israel where they brought the stone. I went to Israel to study national security, went back to...
Oh, you were in Israel to study national security?
Yeah, I went back to do intelligence, came back and decided, okay, I wanted to just do something else. And so I left the media, especially the newspaper, for the staff, really. I had some amazing staff. I'm sure you, David Tamaklo, Opare, Larry Dogbe, they were all there. So I left it for them just to focus on some other stuff. So I've been around a lot more quiet. I also have been working internationally on different things. So I've been around. I
can see. In fact, that the last time your name came up prominently in the media was what happened at Trade Fair. For a lot of you, for a lot of people, that was the first time they had heard. Oh, okay, so this is what he's really been up to.
Yes. So I would, since you've asked, I'll tell you a little story about how I ended up in printing.
Okay.
And how I ended up at the trade fair.
Okay.
So like I told you, 2010, I was considering career change. I had fun, with journalism. I was best investigative journalist, Ghana, 2003. Yeah. I was West Africa journalist, best co-winner West Africa best journalist. I was Africa best. I was world best. So I at some point I needed a little challenge, and I thought, okay, I wanted to do something else. But the reason why I entered printing, you will be surprised.
Because you were saying you were doing intelligence, security.
No, I still do that. So even when I was working as a journalist, I was working for a lot of the international risk companies. So like, I hear their names once in a while. I heard of Safo Mafo, but so I worked for Crowe & Associates for 15 years as a consultant. And so some of my colleagues, so I worked for risk analysis also in UK for a number of years. I worked for the 3G group for a number of years until last year. I would say I still work for KPMG Europe. So from time to time I do that. And a lot of it has to do more with intelligence.
Okay.
So risk analysis, security assessment, stuff like that. So I do that on the side.
Okay.
But printing. So what happened was in 2010, I was looking for a small place to buy a press to print the newspaper.
Okay.
And then I asked this young guy from KNUST who did research. So I asked him if he would do a small research, whether it's worth printing our own newspaper or whether it's worth, since that's not our core business, whether we should outsource it. So he brought me a report that was quite exciting. So I gave him money to go back and expand the thing into rather commercial printing and let me see how. And when he gave me the numbers, I said, okay, I think now that I'm looking at other careers, I think I will focus here.
Okay.
So I started there. Then I needed a smaller place. This lady took me to Trade Fair because there was a white lady who was leaving and wanted to rent out the space. Okay. So I went there, and the amount she was calling, I was like, how? I'm a Ghanaian. Like, I'm renting from a white person who is leaving. So it should be possible for me to also rent.
Okay.
At that time, the chief executive there, I think the one appointed by Kufo was the one who was there. And he had this plan that he wanted companies to come to the trade fair because when Nkrumah's original idea was he wanted the one side to be an industrial side, and he wanted more industrial companies to come there. So when I went to see him, he was excited, and he actually wanted me to follow him to other companies to try to bring them to the trade fair, so that industrial section will be taken by companies as part of the original plan. So that's how he gave me the space, bare land, and I started doing block work, like one block after the other.
You built it.
We built it. It was bush when they in fact, the guy who showed me the thing gave me the size, and he couldn't go into the bush, so he threw the stone and said, that's your size. So we weeded it. We brought people. We started molding the block, one block after another. And for about a year and a half, we managed to put up the first phase.
Okay.
So the first phase was more of a general printing. The second phase was security printing. So we ended up printing some of the empty and scratch cards.
Okay.
The final phase was the packaging. And I was so excited about the company because of where we were heading towards.
Okay.
We had become so good at what we were doing, also not because of my knowledge, because we had a lot of experts who brought in a lot of knowledge. So we were printing.
You work with a lot of expatriates.
Yeah, we had a lot of experts at the factory. So we were working. We were doing things like printing, doing packaging for Johnny Walker.
Okay.
So black label, red label, those premium boxes.
Okay.
We were doing them for the first time in Ghana, and we were going to be we had already been contacted by South Africa for Johnny Walker, by Nigeria for Johnny Walker boxes. So it was like after 10 years of experimenting with general printing and security printing, we were gradually gravitating towards full-time packaging.
Okay.
For the first time in Ghana, we were doing pharmaceutical packaging. 99% of pharmaceutical boxes come from India. So we started manufacturing pharmaceutical boxes for the first time here on a large scale. And so it was exciting, and that was the middle of everything when the factory got demolished. So it was really a big blow, really.
It was a huge lift off for you. You were getting to the point where you were doing things that were not being done in Ghana.
The thing about how the life of business is, like I said, we started off, we were doing general printing. All right, so we had 3 managers, one for the general printing, one for the security printing, and the other for the packaging.
Okay.
But I saw the packaging side as the final place where the opportunities were big, where we were beginning to even export packaging to South Africa, to Nigeria. It was going to be, and the Nigeria market is huge. South Africa, Congo, and Cameroon was what we were going to get
markets
before the factory was demolished. So we had gotten to that point after 10 years of day and night. Like, if you know my friends, they'll tell you, I can work from morning to morning. That's how I used to work. I will go to work morning and come back the next day. So it was just a lot of work, so intense. 10 years, 11 years of toil. Just to see it just go down like that was quite painful. And it went down in less than an hour. It was just something else.
There's a bit more of a story, but okay. So you saw you wanted a place at trade fair. You were negotiating with a white lady for a space that they already have built, but you thought that, why wouldn't I get my own land and build from the ground yourself?
Yes.
You got the land, built yourself, started the business. The business had just started thriving, and you were on a huge takeoff. All of a sudden, your hard work was paying off. Then one day, what happened? Because you said it happened in an hour, but before that, I'm sure a sequence of events.
This story, what I think the real reason for demolishing my factory, this story, I will tell it later, because it's very, very sensitive. And the real reason why I think they demolished the factory, I think it has to do with my international work in the oil sector.
Okay.
And I think because of the kind of confidentiality contracts that we have, and also because of, for some very, very strategic reason, I think we will tell that story someday. But I can almost bet you 99% that my business was targeted because of some work that I had been contracted to do in the oil sector.
Your business was targeted?
Yeah.
Because of some work you were contracted to do in the
I
oil
work
sector?
as a risk advisor.
Okay.
So I work also as a risk advisor for a few of the oil companies. And I think one of the projects, advisory things that we did might have really led to the demolition of the factory. But we will tell that story. It's a very, very serious story. Very, very serious. But, I'm so used to big stories that I tend to be very calm about it. So
because we all know what you did.
Now there's tension. You don't want to add to it, but it's really terrible.
But I'm wondering when you tell that story, because why is today not the best time to tell it?
Not today. Maybe after 2024. Maybe, yeah. Yeah.
Because a lot of people felt Raymond Archer, investigative journalist, you were one of those who they felt were responsible for the MPP's loss in 2008. Of course, the man who contested at the time is the man who is president now. Your work, even in the studios, you hosting a show. Among others, some of the information
so let me tell you about that show. Is it Election Forensics?
Election Forensics, yeah.
So in the run up to the elections, we had a lot of information, and we felt that if we run a story on Inquirer by morning, it will take 2 days to get to the north before people read it, and things like that. And Roland Archer Steven, I say he used to be my friend. Now he's my brother.
Okay.
We came up with that program because, and I was actually led to more of the public speaking because of Roland.
Okay.
Because he was such a pestering producer. Okay. He will never let you go. He wants you to come in. He will do it. He will come to my house, and that's how Roland was, and that's how we became friends. He really paid attention to his work. Okay. So in the run up to the election, we thought, if you really want to do all of these, you can't do it effectively. So I closed down the Inquirer a little early before the elections, so we could focus and do that content on radio. And I thought it was the best decision. From hindsight, I thought it was the best decision, really. You heard those stories, and they are still walking around. We'll put dead bodies on the street just so that they will make a government uncomfortable. Same people now, you just say a word, they get so upset. Like I listen to the news from time to time, and I just shut it because I get confused. I get confused that you had someone that was willing to go and take somebody who was dead's body, sprinkle it on the street just so that a government will look unpopular. But yet, they don't want to be criticized at all. They don't want it. They don't want you to say they're even wrong. You're not even talking about real sabotage. That in intelligence terms is sabotage. You're actually sabotaging the whole government because you want to be in office, but you don't even want to entertain things like ordinary criticism. That's something that conflicts me a lot.
But I will come back to that issue because you just commented on the environment within which free speech operates nowadays, the media among others. But I wanted to ask the question whether you thought that the work you did in the lead up to 2008 election and the impact it had also contributed to what happened to you at Trade Fair.
No doubt. When the new chief executive came, the very first week.
New chief executive?
Yeah. So for some reason, I think the Trade Fair, they always appoint the chief executive from the North American branches.
Okay.
So the one that was there the NDC time, Mr. Okuti, he was from North America.
Okay.
This one was also from North America.
North America branch of the MPP.
Of the MPP.
Okay.
So the first week she came, I knew that we were in trouble because, they will come and lock up our factory and they will say that we owe rent. And we wanted to get a warehouse, and I paid for. I applied for the space and got it.
Okay.
But then they had, I think Access Bank had containers on that land, but they were no longer interested. But I couldn't go and take that content out legally. So I was waiting for Trade Fair to take it out.
Okay.
It took them 1 year to move the containers from that side. She came in and said, you have to pay the rent.
For the 1 year?
For the 1 year that Trade Fair did not move the containers from there, you have to pay the rent. And not just that, she will come to my factory, and this is like about 10 minutes walk from where the main factory is. They will come to my factory and lock it because they want you to pay for land that you have not even developed yet. So I paid for it. And when I paid for it, I said, okay, then I'm now going to develop it. No, you can't do it.
After paying for it?
Look, I used to literally have to beg so that I can. There was a time when we had to work for Guinness Ghana Limited. We're doing quite for them. So Guinness Ghana falls under Diageo.
Okay.
So Diageo is the biggest beverage company, but our contract was with the parent company of Guinness, not Guinness.
Okay.
So we had to deliver some work, and they had come to lock the factory. Why? Because we have to go and pay for the land that they have not released to us,
which you have not used.
So when she came, I knew immediately that it was going to be rocky for the business. And now I was starting to think about a whole lot of things. So yeah, I think a lot of the things, as I hear it, I think it would be a little arrogant to think that maybe I contributed. That project, that show itself was a lot of collaborations.
Okay.
And so I personally can't take credit for it.
Okay.
It's just the whole team that worked together. It was a very, very intense period. Look, I used to live at Dansoma with my family at the time. And one night, I almost died. I like American cars, and I always, that night, for some very strange reason, I took a car that was smaller. It was a sports car that was smaller.
Okay.
And I closed and went home, and they cut the car into pieces right in front of my house. So we went through a lot during that period.
Car cut into pieces.
Oh, I moved from Dansoman, went to Tessano. They used to go to, when I'm at work, they would go to my house and be looking through the window and be threatening my family from the window. Things like that. But for me, I didn't want to make too much noise about it, because the more you make noise, they make you feel like you're afraid.
Okay.
And so so you keep moving around, all because of these kind of situations. So these guys is just who they are. The kind of things you see them do now is the kind of things they've done all throughout. Demolition of businesses. Look, ICOM at Chimota was the biggest printing press, security press, general press in Africa before Kufuor came to office. He used, at the time we were thinking about school, he was already printing passports for Egypt. They came into office, messed him up. The guy ended up in jail. I mean, some of the things he did, out of his business went down. Because of that, he also did a few things. He ended up in jail, sold all his properties, and died after jail. You've seen gold. They shut it down.
Yeah.
Okay? You've seen the banks, because it's not theirs. They shut it down. So it's a continuation of things they have done that they continue to do. I was one of the people who were so upset when the Alaji's hotel was broken down. I didn't like it. I was at the Chronicle by then. And We all didn't like that. I thought if the state had allowed him to build the factory, the hotel to the point of commissioning, then the argument that it was on the waterway was mute because the state was complicit.
Okay.
Because you don't build those things without permits. So I thought maybe, and a lot of few stories I heard, so I thought maybe it was politically motivated, and I hated it. And I thought that was the last time. Because in our very civilized democracy, I think the first time we had businesses being destroyed blatantly like that was since that time. And to see it roll over, all over again, for me is just shocking. Really, really shocking. It's taking this nation back, what? I don't know when Alaji's factory hotel was broken down, but maybe what, 30 years or 25 years? I don't know how. That's how much it's taking the nation back that we can revisit destroying people's business under all sorts of pretenses. If the figures that they're throwing around is true, there was a banking crisis looming. Okay, they needed 9 billion Ghana cedis to resolve the crisis.
Yeah.
Eventually, government had 20 billion cedis to resolve the crisis. You need 9 billion to resolve a banking crisis. You have 20 billion. What would a leader do with us in that situation? These banks hold businesses, they hold employment, they hold strategic positions in the financial sector. Is why they are actually they are actually managed by the central bank.
Yeah.
Banking crises have happened all over the world. Banks most times will go into distress. Okay. So look what happened in the U.S. There was once a leader who inherited the banking crisis, or strategic private sector companies that had that were in crisis. General Motors. Yeah. So what did the leader?
All of them, yeah.
Yes. So Ford, Cadillac, Dodge, all of that come from General Motors. What did the leader do? He says, "Okay, we have the money, but you are the managers of this company, and you have been responsible for all this crisis. I don't care about you, but I care about the workers, and I care about the position you hold strategically in our economy. For that reason, I'm going to give you a bailout, but I am going to call the shots. You are not getting your bonuses like you do. We are going to be involved in the management of this company until you pay me my money back, just so that you can keep the workers, just so that you don't distort the economy, just so that we can all move along." They did that. They had an exit period. They exited, got their money back. Company is still running. How do we have 20 billion? Do we use 20 billion to solve a 9 billion crisis? That should tell you the purpose for the destruction of the companies were not to solve the problem. The purpose for the running over of all these companies, banking companies, was not to solve a problem. It was just to destroy the companies, even if they had crisis. And you do these things to banks like Unibank. Unibank had taken in a lot of government contractors. So they had financed a lot of government jobs that weren't being paid. Okay. You need that in an economy. When the government is a little tight, that the private sector banks can come in and support. Yeah. And yet you are not ready to pay them, but you're ready to destroy them. So you tell me you're cleaning it up. You clean something that is messy. If you already had the money, and if you already owe them, you could have just said, okay, I owe you. Even if I pay you, perhaps you might not be able to resolve all your problems, but you could, to a large extent, resolve the problems. Mm-hmm. But they look at the faces behind these businesses, and they're like, well, it's fair business. So you can see that a lot of the banks and a lot of the businesses, if you go through, you can see it's not one of theirs. Mm. So they are strategically destroying these businesses whilst building their own. Mm. And it brings me to a lot of the thoughts that I have in my mind now as somebody who practices in the space of intelligence. Mm-hmm. See, in human beings, okay, no matter who you are, the is you may be smart, you may be stupid, you may be brave, you may be whatever. But there's one thing that every human being has: fear.
Okay.
No matter who you are, no matter where you belong, fear. So dictators always say that if you can tap into that, you establish what they call deterrence. So I know you're afraid of this, so therefore I make you know if you do this, I will do this to you because I know you fear that.
Okay.
I feel like the NDC rightly traded a lot. They went through a lot of reforms right up to now. That look, we had people in this party that had a certain approach to things.
Okay.
We needed to polish it up. We needed to move more to the center.
Okay.
And therefore, those things they did away. But because they threw those things away, somehow their opponents are beginning to feel like they're weak.
Okay.
And you see the kind of violence they use against them. You see members of parliament being beaten. You see political operatives wearing national security uniforms, brutalizing people, holding guns around. Look, all of this, for me, where I sit, the next time NDC gets power, if they do not establish a clear line of deterrence, I'm not saying that they should do the same, but you have to be able to tell your opponent, you've destroyed my businesses, you've beaten my members of parliament, you've killed my supporters, you are going to pay for this. And I do this because the next time you get power, don't touch them again. If you do not establish that clear line of deterrence, you are gone. A time will come where you will not find anyone to go out there and bravely fight for your cause. I see these things over a period of time. And I really commend the leadership for some of their patience.
Okay.
Because they have been really close tipping points, especially in the last election. There were some really, really close tipping points. But they're lucky. The nation is lucky they have a leader like John. Because when it mattered most, he was the guy that said, even if we have to wait and move the needle even 1 inch going forward, it's worth doing it.
Okay.
So therefore, that sort of disarmed a lot of people. If the leader himself is willing to move forward and make sure that this nation remains intact, so be it. But that line, in my opinion, the building on it, if it is not demolished immediately, it is going to fester in the minds, the subconscious of a lot of people, and it will not be good. It will not be good.
Well, if you just join us, I have Mr. Raymond Archer in the studio with me. Of course, his name is most of the times attached to the Inquirer, and then to this station.
Our beautiful baby.
Yes. Hey, but I was wondered, what happened to the Inquirer?
So, like I told you, when I decided to move on to do other things, I left it for the workers.
Okay.
So I actually had no role in it. I wanted to give it to them.
It was theirs.
It was theirs. In my opinion, it was theirs. We had built it together. Of course, I'm the owner, I'm the business person, or I'm the editor-in-chief, but a lot of the work we did were together.
Okay.
Beautiful family, young, dedicated, hardworking. So when I was leaving, I just wanted it to be their baby too. But you have to understand, like, I worked at the Chronicle, rose very quickly, also moved on to set up the Inquirer. I think at some point, a lot of them had gotten to the point where they also wanted to branch into their own. So I think Larry edits the Herald
now, yeah.
David
is doing the WhatsApp news, yeah.
Opare, I think, is the Republic.
Yes.
Like, most of the boys are on their own. And that's how the story of the Inquirer really ended. So once they all moved on to their own, it was just left the way it is now.
But when you remember those days with the Inquirer, You were very popular. Everybody wanted to read the Inquirer because you're doing exclusive stories that were investigative pieces, information that a lot of people did not have. You had all of them. How did you get to that point? What kind of work did you have to do to push the Inquirer to that level?
You know, I'm somebody that takes my work very seriously, and that's why I spend a lot of time on everything I do. Mm-hmm. When I put my mind to do something, I spend a lot of time on it.
Okay.
And also because I take journalism to be a very, very serious profession.
Okay.
My first encounter with journalism is during the days when my dad got arrested, went to prison. They say he had been killed. We forgot. So journalists used to come around looking. Soldiers will come looking for him, and me and my mom will run because my other brothers were much younger. But journalists will come wanting to talk to. Like, I was very young at the time, so I used to ask my mom, like, what are they doing? So she used to explain it to me. And when I grew up, I saw how important it was, and so I took my work very, very seriously. When I was at the School of Journalism, our final year, I had an accident, so I could not start my internship early. But by the time I started, a lot of my colleagues had already gone ahead. I was on admission. By the time I started, I was among the first people. You remember the newspaper called the Free Press?
Yes.
That was my first posting.
Oh, you started from the Free Press?
I started my internship from the Free Press. So I was at the hospital, and I was watching these armed robbers arrested, most times beaten to pulp, brought to the police hospital for training, for treatment. And then you wake up, and they are gone. Like, the police will just be there, they will move. Those guys will wake up in the night, they are gone. The next morning, I'm lying there and I'm hearing them arguing and blah, blah, blah. And so there were like 3-4 cases
of armed robbers
brought to the hospital. And I was
find a way of escaping.
They find a way, because in the night, they are let loose and they just walk out. So I was documenting all of this whilst I was on my sickbed. So the first day I went to Free Press, I had the story in my hand, and I showed it to the editor, and it was the lead story for that day. And so I was like, that is exciting. So from there, I realized it is actually the quality of the work and the amount you put into it that really makes you who you will become. Okay. So when I left the School of Journalism, from Free Press, I think I went to the Chronicle. Mm-hmm. And Kofi Kumsin wasn't there at the time. I think he had a project in the Western region. Mm-hmm. So I started writing, and he called the newsroom one day and was like, I want to talk to that intern. And then I spoke to him, because we all had, at the time, Chronicle was like the place to be. To get internship there was even difficult. So I spoke to him, and he thought I was such a good journalist, and I was so excited. I had not even finished my internship. And he told me there was no way I was going to leave the Chronicle, and that he was going to give me a job immediately. And so I never got the chance to go to radio, to television. I stayed there. My salary was actually negotiated by the principal of the School of Journalism, because his point was, they say you're good, but if they don't hire you, and then now you didn't get the opportunity to do radio. So he actually pushed and got me my job, and I was so excited. So I had a job straight from school, never looked for employment all the way. Then when I finished school, I realized that they say you needed 1 year before you could join the GJA. Okay. So whilst I was waiting, I joined the West African Journalists Association. That same year, I was the co-winner of the West African Best Journalist. From that award, I said to myself that I'm convinced it's the quality and effort you put in your work that determines who you will become. It doesn't matter how many years you have been here. It is the quality of your work. So from there, everything that I did, I took time, I put effort, and I did it the way I thought will get the kind of response you need from well-thinking people. Okay. You know, when I won the World Journalist of the Year, the European Commission wrote to me that I was the youngest ever in the history and the first African to have won it. And I look at this award, you have CNN guys there, you have Washington Post guys there. But I remember one of the guys at the dinner asked me whether I was an intern, because most of the guys there were like old, very experienced journalists.
You turn up young.
I think I was 30 years old,
okay.
I think, at the time. So I was blessed to know that it is the amount of work. And then also I was even more blessed because the Chronicle was a place where you could grow.
Okay.
They had the resources, they had the atmosphere to let journalists grow. I also had good people, senior colleagues who thought I was good and were willing to work with me. William Nyako, I think now he's now the one in charge of the Corruption Watch program.
Okay.
We gelled and we became such a good pair. We used to do stories together. And so my colleagues all realized very quickly before my graduation, I was already practicing and I was doing my thing. So I think it's because of the work. I like to be very detailed and I like to put in there a lot of effort in whatever I'm doing in my life.
I have always wondered, how do you get investigative pieces? How do you, because you did all that with your face still out there.
Yes.
Without necessarily having to go the nice way and everything.
No, I don't think that's, even in law enforcement, people who do undercover work have limitations.
Yeah.
And I think if you're really going to do a professional work, you can do it. You can do it. Look, there are a lot of people who have been hurt by my work, but are friends now because they look at the work you have done and they look at the fact that you were fair and you still got your story out. I think that is very, very, very important. Investigative work, I think, I hear journalists say they're looking for sources, they're waiting for someone to put a tip out there and send him documents. I don't operate like that. If I get a source, that's fine. But most times, for example, there was a very brilliant story at the Chronicle then that was done. And I'll tell you how that story evolved. So there was a story in the Daily Graphic spread that said that the Speaker of Parliament and the delegation had flown in the newly acquired presidential jet to South Africa.
Okay.
So that's not a story that anybody will come and give you. Mm-hmm. But the question was, but when did we buy a new jet? They said new. Like, when did we buy a jet? From whom did we buy it? How much did we buy it? So we start making calls, and then you realize that there's a big story out there. That story ran for, I don't know, even up to now, it still runs. So there's a particular story now. There's a particular project now that I'm looking at. And it's a classic case. So you look at things and you develop a hypothesis, okay, and you know that this cannot be normal. There obviously is something there. And in politics and in journalism and in every investigation, they say follow the money. If you follow the money, you will always find stuff. If you ever in politics, in any investigation that you do, if you follow the money, you will be shocked what you will find. Because money, politics, women, it's always hanging around they hang around in the same neighborhood. So it's also your ability to spot things, okay, and to develop a good hypothesis out of it, and to say, okay, I think this person might have that information, and I might have to find a way to reach out to him, maybe to his friend, maybe to him directly, maybe if I appeal to his conscience that I know this is happening, if you can help me, if you go to someone and you say, can you educate me on this issue? When you use the word educate, they feel empowered. They feel like they are imparting knowledge to you. Can you give me some document? So there are a lot of simple things that I will go to someone that I think thinks I am too smart for him, and then I will ask him for him to educate me on this project. Okay. And that alone makes a difference. So I like to look at situations, do analysis, and know this can't be right. If you're a public servant and you own 8 houses, that can't be right. Okay. There must be something there. And if you look inside and you look well, you will find it. It's not such a big deal, but I feel like people now want to wait for citizens to find something wrong. They do the work. They do it a lot. Citizens do a lot of the work that we take credit for. Citizens do it. I always say that when I write, I don't write to impress my readers. I write to impress those who were participants in the things that I'm writing about. Okay. Those who have all the documents, those who have all the everything, just so that they know how he came close. This guy has come really close. Those are the people I target. Mm-hmm. And then I end up raising the bar for those who read it.
Well, if you just join us, I'm in the studio with the one and only Mr. Raymond Archer. Well, we'll take a break. When we come back, I'll ask him a few questions about some of the projects he remember, some of the work he did. Because people are already raising some. So I'll be asking a few questions on that.
Maybe we should let them raise it, then we'll discuss it. I think that will be better.
Okay. So if you have some things that he did in the past that you're interested in finding out how you went about it and everything, just send a message. Our WhatsApp number is 0599-922-922, and you can, if you're also listening to us or watching us via Facebook, use the comment section. I can see a few of those, and then just send it. I'll read out to him and he'll respond appropriately. We'll be right back.
Sa onipa di bibia beto chacha nenya na pomudene ye ntisi ye yare a ye kwa yaresa bia ye benye yaresa Noble Trustable Clinic ya yaresa bia said ye we yade tie bia no duru ho a obenya wa yaresa ya Noble Trustable so say best treatment center for heart and liver diseases and overall best stable clinic in Ghana. Enti wo ha on say I want emma fibroid, ovarian cyst, liver disease, kidney muhal, stroke, BP, diabetes, and large heart, and now prostate cancer. To anamo, Nabra Noble Trustable Clinic. Na ube hu se ampa ayaresa wo ho. Noble Trustable Clinic wa danso my banana in Abolo Junction. And now Shaiman, Middle East, Abam Coffee Street, 18. Yani CS ya sorry ne dimhwa ni mu. Fre 0244 401878. Ana 0267 117-666. Noble Trustable Clinic. Experience the true cure.
Odofo uwadai subi se upesa uto asase empo uto efie ene wani ayo toto ana ene ehwise wasase ene ufie Real Plan Estates awasase yentam a asembie ni ho ensase bi wakasoa dodowa oyibi ene amasama se upesa uto omundan ni bia payment ni so affordable. Real Plan Estates, we make your dream house possible. Still, you can get a land for as low as 4,000 Ghana cedis. Na se upe asemu chechemu bia first telephone number 0272-898989 and now say 0244-646230. Real Plan Estates, real company for real people.
Na fwana wina chuma so di nisun kunimu a victory sai ya ria try ye so ache ene ya num victory garlic mixture
ame ya pomaye ding
victory garlic mixture and let me join the celebration. Victory celebration.
Mise na me moja ntimi ni mumu afusani
bese kana ye na nti kakra dia ni abre ya kuma bo periperi saa ni eri su brinyan ene ti victory garlic mixture kan ekonu bi na ye ton wo victory garlic mixture ewo
enkan ubenya bi wo na nabuache heba kensuo heba ena tinated heba wonyina wo kanhye mase ubenya bi wo KNJ heba Colinac heba Misty heba ene Freddy Mens heba
abatan na wo mo manufuo apemfo no kwada wo ni fiedi mi redu nka ho 020-129-3280 and 024-2545-633.
Victory Garlic Mixture.
FD Alire said that the crackle mu adia to say.
You call it Feel Good Friday.
We say Weekend Spectacular. Because it's only on one station.
The difference with me, when I do what I'm doing, but I'm doing it like I'm doing it for TV.
Hello, Ghana. After a week of highs and lows, we get you in the right mood only on one station. Radio Gold 90.5 FM. Join yours truly, Kofi Otridako. Irresistible DJ PK. Only on Weekend Spectacular. 3 hours of pulsating hip-hop, R&B, Afrobeats, and what have you. Great conversation and rip-tickling moments only on Weekend Spectacular. Fridays, 7 p.m. to 10 p.m. Only on your power station. Radio Gold 90.5 FM. It's Ghana's biggest weekend rendezvous. It's a feel-good Friday.
One station. Accra 2022, 23, 24 and more. We don't chat, man. Back live. Commercial free. Just mid-morning show.
Oh, we love what you have in bad drama. Mid-morning show.
The mid-morning show.
Yes.
90.5.
Good morning, my neighbors. On children, my neighbor.
Experience quality
Radio station.
Put your hands up.
Rave.
Yes.
Powerful.
Morning vibes and more. Accra 90.5. We don't jam here by Drama.
Whoa, we love you.
Your mid-morning show on Radio Go.
We are back like 100 times. 2 times bigger. 90.5.
All the things I know that you deserve.
Mid-morning show with Cham and Badremba.
Like you've been told, the station is gold, never gets cold. So just be bold, advertise, cause here you sell out.
And of course, you're still on the Gold Morning Conversation today on a Friday. Our guest is the one and only Mr. Raymond Archer. Let me do a few of your messages that you've been sending to us. This is okay. This one doesn't come with a name, and it came through our WhatsApp line. It says, "Good morning. Please ask Raymond if he's still into the packaging business. I need his help in my business." Are you? Because I was also wondering whether what had happened to you meant that you were done with the business.
No, not just that. But so they demolished the factory and they destroyed the equipment.
Okay.
So then there was no business. And to start that would take you another 10 years, 7 years. It's not.
So you lost your equipment.
I lost everything.
But I'm wondering whether you sought any form of. Sometimes when this happens to you as a businessman, these are losses to you.
Yeah.
Have you taken up the matter legally?
No, so you know, when, like I told you, all those harassment that was going on. So I immediately went to court because I just realized where things were going. So as I speak to you, the case is in court. They actually demolished the factory while the case was in court.
Okay.
But for very strategic reasons, I don't even want to push because they will give you some judgment that it will even be more hurtful. And so they don't call the case anymore. They just left it. I will leave it at that for some other day. I think
is that also a statement of your faith in the Ghana's judiciary? Because I'm wondering, you said they'll give you some judgment that will even be much more heartbreaking. Will just rub salt into your wound?
Because, you know, so first of all, we got an injunction to restrain the trade fair from ever demolishing the facility.
Yes, I recall.
They were served. They went to court. They lost the argument. In fact, they did not even come and defend themselves on the issue of the injunction. The injunction had been in place for 1 year. After 1 year, they now wanted to go and defend the injunction. That's when everybody was like, forget it. This is going to be thrown out. Don't worry about it. What I did not know, what I found out later, was the fact that there had been a decision completely non-related to the court that led to the demolition of the factory. And where the order came from was so far away, was why they had that time difference. They went there 12 o'clock midnight. In fact, interestingly, that day I was with Roland at home when I got the call from the security that some armed police and operatives were there with bulldozers demolishing the factory. So they had gone there around midnight, and from what I found out later, where the order came from, the time difference is what led to them going to the place at that time.
They got an order.
Yeah.
From a court?
No.
Okay, so this is within the executive.
We'll talk about that later someday. I'm telling you, it's a very serious thing. But I think compared to how serious it is, sometimes I feel like a lot of people ask me, "How are you?" Like I would have died. Like I have people from the NPP that will tell you, I would have died if this happened to me. I would have died. But compared to the seriousness against the state of what I was doing, I think it's a smaller price to pay. Really. It's a smaller price to pay compared to what I was doing in the international risk business. If you ask me if I was to make another judgment on what I was doing, I would make the same judgment.
So you feel it's a commensurate reaction?
Yes.
Oh, that's an interesting thing to say.
Yeah.
They're pulling down your business. You understand? Okay. Perhaps I did something to you that is strong enough for you to act this way.
No. I'm saying that I told you that I think is related to my work as a risk advisor in the oil sector.
Yeah.
And as a risk advisor, I face the realities of everything and give advice accordingly.
Okay.
So, for example, and I'm not saying in this specific case, I'm going to give you a general example.
Okay.
So let's say that company A is in Ghana. They want to do a project, and the project is with government A. Now, government A has brought person A to be a front for ABCD. I will now be asked, look into person A. Is there any fallout if we associate with him? Who is his connections and network in the government? So I have to break everything down and explain to them that this company that has been brought is connected to this company and is connected to this politician and is connected to this. So I have to do all that first investigation and do the analysis and then give them the risk factors. So in this particular project, I thought the risk was too much. And what they were doing there against the state was just way too much for me, even as a Ghanaian. Like I'm saying, when I say that, considering the work I was doing and what they did to my business, I would think maybe it's a smaller risk price to pay, considering what was going on in that sector.
Because I'm wondering, to build a company that got to printing the highest level when it comes to packaging, security printing, and all those, the cost of those equipments that they put together, the reputation you had been able to build, all of it came crashing down one day in a few hours.
You like I told you, even though I work as a consultant, I get paid for it, but I'm a Ghanaian first. If I'm working in, let's say, Rwanda, I'm not from Rwanda, so I would just give them the realities and that's it.
Okay.
In this case, you just imagine, my company was about $10.5-11 million.
Okay.
Imagine the value of the oil sector, the oil fields.
Okay.
We're talking billions. And my factory is for me and my family alone. The oil sector, the oil fields, is for 31 million people. So that's what I'm trying to say, that if I can save that project for the people, I am happy to sacrifice my small business against the billions that benefits everyone. That's actually what I'm trying to say. If you want to demolish my factory because I'm in the way of taking things that belong to 31 million people, and you want to take me out because I'm standing in the way, I'm happy to do that. It's always been what I have been anyway.
You're standing in somebody's way?
Yeah.
In the oil field, in the oil sector.
It's a lot of things. There's a lot of things that goes on, and I think sometimes I feel like Ghanaians know like 20%.
20%
Yes.
of what goes on.
Like what's going on, I think Ghanaians know only 20%.
Judge of what actually happens.
What's happening. I feel like sometimes when I hear people, like I hear Sir John's will, I'm like, people have done, like there's evidence, people have done 20 times what Sir John has done. They're walking around. They're pointing fingers at Opuni. Okay, they're pointing fingers at Opuni, trying to jail him. And they're walking around here with millions stashed in their banks. Like that's I like to like I tell you, me I'm a fact finder. That's what I am. And so I like to do things in detail. So when I hear things on the news, on the radio, when I saw Sir John, I laughed. I said, this guy, dead guy, the only reason why I thought it was good riddance, you remember what Sir John used to say about President Mahama? He was corrupt. He had stolen everything. But here you are. Sometimes karma is real indeed. So the only thing I said was, well, good riddance. You know, like here you are accusing a man who has never been found to be corrupt. Like we don't have any evidence to that effect. Here you are with all your will and everything out there completely. But apart from that, I thought this is a small fish. This guy, small fish. They can do investigation and take the land back. That's small fish. So at the deeper level, I feel like Ghanaians don't even know what's going on. Like they complain about cathedral, but they have more serious stuff going on that they don't know about. So I see stuff like that and I just look at it closely and sometimes nod my head.
Do you think we're doing a good enough job in journalism nowadays?
I hate to, because I'm in the fraternity, I don't like to make judgments because what I feel might be different. It might even be construed to be arrogant.
But it's always, yeah.
But my brother, you know, like the times when I enjoyed journalism was the times where there was competition.
Okay.
There was a time when people from different media houses will work together. I remember, you remember the Eseku, Harun Eseku, the president collecting kickbacks.
Yes.
You know, late Koblan Dumo, God bless his soul, he saw the story against all the attacks, and those were the days when you tag these people. There's been their MO. You write a story, they will go to another media house and write an opposite story, and not just that, they will attack you. Those days, they will use your own media people to attack you, so it doesn't look. They were a lot more clever.
Okay.
So they will, instead of physically harming you or doing whatever, they will use your own media to attack your credibility, to try to. But where are they now? Those people who were doing that, they are now politicians. They have ambassadorial positions, they have political appointments, they are all over the place. But that was how things were working. But at a much deeper level, you will do a story and Komla Dumor will come to our office and say, this is a serious story. But I want to participate in it, but I also want to be sure that I'm not like going to run things. So I want education on why you think this is so, why you think that is so, why you think this is so, how can we collaborate if we are all in the same. It was not about Inquirer, it was not about Raymond Archer, it was about the work. And so if we could work together, you can always achieve more. You know what is happening with the International Consortium of Investigative Journalists. Imagine what a pool of journalists around the world can come together and do. So I love that period where the collaboration, because you see what happens is you will run a story and mention some name, but you will not have fully exhausted the link analysis on that name. But someone at, let's say, Chronicle knows the person. No, actually this guy is this. The story is bigger than what you thought, and will come out, work together. The next day you will see a follow-up from Chronicle that is even amazing. But what we have now is Radio Gold, the NDC. I don't want to have anything to do with them. Is this station? Oh, they are aligned here. Of course, it's true. I see now there's a lot of alignment. But wherever you are aligned to, in my mind, the fact can only be one. And it cannot be true that because you think I'm aligned to A, the fact changes.
Okay.
Like, there's only one truth as far as fact finding is concerned. So the interpretation of the fact can be diverse, but there can only be one fact. That you stole 100 cedis, you stole. You can say that you stole it because you were hungry, you stole it because you were going to pay back, but the fact is that you've stolen. That cannot be a different fact. We're not in the world of Trump, alternate facts. And we see it all over the place. The media has been successfully segregated into thinking this one is bad, this one is bad. And when you divide the media, it's been a classic theory for dictators. Anytime the media is divided, it's easy to control them. And I think that's one thing that I really wish, for the sake of the practice, that the media will see themselves as practitioners. It does not matter what you think it is. If Gold has a story that is exciting, we should be able to say, this story from Gold is exciting. We surely need to have a look at that. Maybe we even have more resources than Gold. We can actually dig a lot more deeper than what they're doing. There's nothing wrong with that. But now, it looks to me, even when one media house runs a story, the other does not want to touch it. You know, so I feel that's such a setback.
Yeah.
That's such a setback, and it is the reason why now it's easy to control people. It's easy to manipulate.
It's easier to close down radio stations.
Yeah, because the other ones will not come after. Will not do anything. Serve them right. Is probably what someone will say. But you know, if they close Gold down, someday they will close you down. It's just a matter of time. So that's why some people say you come for one, you come for all. Not because one cannot be guilty, but just because you have to live in a fraternity. That's how they call it, isn't it? Media fraternity. So if you're so divided, it's easy to conquer. And I feel like now it's easy. It's way easy.
Fractured.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering what you're thinking about this, since we are here on the media, because everybody then speaks about the rule of the Ghana Journalists Association. It's supposed to be a glue that can help hold media houses together. The GJ cannot even organize an election.
You know, since I left school, I left the School of Journalism many years ago. I don't know whether 20 years ago. I think I was a big supporter of the GJA. I yearned to be a member. Like I told you, just after school, it was the only place I wanted to be a member of. And I don't want to mention names, just so we can move on. I think during the Kufo time was when GJA began to disintegrate and denigrate. So it used to be the case that the best work was deemed the most investigative work. And so therefore you become the best investigative journalist, you win the Journalist of the Year, time immemorial. So people were excited to see the best work. And so you have to research your work. Whether you're doing economic reporting or environmental reporting, it has to be thoroughly researched. So the best investigative work turned out to be the Journalist of the Year. At some point, they stopped that because they wanted to give the Journalist of the Year award to someone else. I think that was the time of William Nyaku. So he walked away with the best investigative journalist minus the Journalist of the Year. And from there, a lot of people began. So I won like the best investigative journalist 2002, 2003, and I was not the Journalist of the Year.
Okay.
So from there, people began to realize, you can actually control GJA if you can focus on their awards, how they organize themselves. And since then, GJA has never been the same. And it's a shame. There are times when privately, I will call some of the leadership and say, "My bro, this doesn't look, or can you do this? Can you do that?" But when you talk to other members, like active members, you realize that there's more to it. There's more to what is happening to the GJA. And so a lot of people, like there were times when I wanted to personally like sponsor awards, and then I will talk to people, and the kind of things they will say just discourages you completely, you know. And so there are people who can actually help the association. We have to help ourselves. If they do help themselves and they are seen in a certain light of not being aligned or partial, they will have sponsorship without problems. They will have good awards without problems. The GJA can actually look at West Africa. I think journalism starts from Ghana.
Okay.
And we should be able to organize the West African journalists some sort of awards from
Ghana's
the GJA.
gold. Radio
They
gold.
can recognize good, deserving journalists from the sub-region.
Okay.
And so instead of looking so small, we are smaller than our own country, while we could be bigger than our country and be influential in the sub-region. So I'm looking forward to that. When I won my West African journalist, we had to go to Senegal. That's where the West African Journalists Association head office was, and I'm sure still is. Ghana is where it's supposed to be. But you look at these scenarios, you look at the commotion, you look like once again the politics that has entered the association, and sometimes they feel like when they do that, the politicians, they love that. They love it when journalists will fight themselves instead of fight them, because they are rational people. So if I can throw in a commotion and you guys are fighting for 1 year, you don't have elections, I just sit here. I'm not saying government is behind it, but I'm just saying anybody who can cause that kind of commotion will be happy to do so. Once you fight for a year with that, if you can't even organize elections and you're already so fractured, then you can't come together because the association is in charge of press freedom, ethical rules and regulations, enforcement of other things, well-being of journalists, all of that. So if the association is in turmoil, journalism is in turmoil, technically speaking.
Well, let me continue the messages because I wanted to ask you, was there, because you talked about a few of the stories you did, was there any story that you did that you never forget about?
Yes.
The kind of work it took, the things you learned, and perhaps the difficulties you went through. Which story was that?
I think it was the story of a man that I have come to respect even after that, Dr. Richard Anani.
Okay.
Yeah, he lost a lot. He lost a lot because of those stories, and that story took a lot of toll also on us.
Okay.
Because at that time, Richard was a very powerful guy, and a lot of people thought he was actually the one that would have, after Kufuor, would have been the main guy. And then we went up against him. I also naively underestimated how powerful he was at the time. And so that story took a toll on the entire staff, security-wise. And I don't think I competently managed it well, the security of my staff, even myself. It is a story that started with a newspaper that ended up at Shraj. I got subpoenaed to go and testify. Shraj gave his ruling in our favor. it eventually went to. So like it tested every system of our governance. So media, charge, court. And the reason why I say that, and I thought that was, there were times that when for me, after my work, I thought I was done. I was going to move on to the next big story. But then I got subpoenaed by Shraj, who did an excellent work, by the way. But we will leave the place. When Shraj is done with you, is done with you. Now we have to come out on our own. We had no bodyguard, we had nothing. There was one time, Roland and I think David Tamaklo as well, because we went to the hearing together. The bodyguards chased us from Shraj all the way to Kolebu because they were so enraged, they were so upset, they didn't like what was going on, and they took their anger on us. Like it was just inches. But over the years, I've met Richard, like I meet him in public places, and he still smiles and responds to you, and doesn't seem to harbor any anger. Those are the kind of leaders we need in our country. That you can hurt him but then he sees that you did your work, that we can move on as citizens and not perpetually have his eye on you like someone took a gun and killed Ameswali. Okay, I don't know whether it is actually directly related to his work, but it looks so. So he didn't do that. He could have done that. He was a very powerful man at the time. He will still meet you, respond to you, greet you. And I think those are the kind of people that, compared to what is going on now, I will want more people like that in office. They will do the wrong thing. You will report about it. They consider that you've done your work. Then they will move on as leaders. And then we are the better. And people like that, most times, not all the times, end up being more careful in public office. And so that story sticks with me. Okay. The MV Benjamin's cocaine case sticks with it. It sticks with me because of how it ended. Okay. And the grand cover-ups that happened. One of the finest guys, in my opinion, at Narcotic Control Board got sacrificed. Benindego, I don't know, he was the head of operations at the time. And my happiness is that the global community didn't believe what the government was doing. And so I think they sacrificed him. They moved him back to Interior. Eventually, I think he left. But he went to work with Stanchat. And he was in charge of, I think, the anti-money laundering division. Now he has a brilliant career, and I'm very happy for him. But that story was a very, very, very serious. You're dealing with organized crime. You're dealing with powerful complicity in powerful political complicity in organized crime. It's a very, very deadly cocktail. Here we were, normal journalists, no protection, in the middle of all of these stories, hated by those who didn't like you to do stuff like that, but loved by those who saw reason in what you were doing. So those were exciting. That's why when I'm able to come back here, because people like your listeners, when they support you, they are actually the reason. They don't know, but they're actually the people that keep you going. Okay. Because it can be terrible. Like you can receive threats, your family receive threats, things happen, but then when they meet you, they're happy for you. They're happy, they're excited about what you do. And that really, really keeps you going. More than anything, in my opinion. More than anything. The people who read you, who appreciate what you do, who encourage you to do better, keep you going all the time.
Well, like I said, let me do a few messages. This one is from, this is the one I was talking about. It says, it's refreshing listening to my crush this morning. I used to crush on him until he got married. Though I still do. I fell in love with him hosting election forensics, and I'll be glad he will get back on radio with that show. Thumbs up, Raymond, and keep being you. You all have an SD. Do you have that in mind?
I have other things in mind. But they say once you're a journalist, always a journalist. Like, I end up investigating all my life. Like, sometimes I see journalists write stories, and for me, I don't have that boundary.
Okay.
I don't care where you work. I see you doing some story, and I can almost I will call you and say, listen, I think the real story, because sometimes journalists have stories and you can see all mangled up, but if they will just focus on one angle, you can see the story come to life. So there are times when I will call journalists and say, no, I think you're chewing too much in this story. Focus on the most important angle, which I think is this. Over the past years, I don't want to mention names, but I've been to other newsrooms to help them on how to cope with security systems and working under journalism under certain authority, certain regimes, also about news writing. I've done that, I think, about 3 media houses, just quietly go take them through a few things. So I do that on the quiet, and it makes me happy, really, to see the new generation of journalists like you doing what you're doing with almost small pay. You know, I'm not saying I don't know how much you earn, but the feeling in Ghana is that journalism is not paying. I was lucky, and I'll tell you how I survived. I used to hear people say, oh, he's paid by the CIA, the American embassy pays him. No. What I was doing was, I spent my time in 2 things. I was working as a risk consultant for Crown Associates. So all the stories they're talking about, what they do, what these people are doing there, I work there, I know what's going on. But I was working there. I used to be paid $2,000 an hour. If I moved out of Ghana to go and work elsewhere for Crown Associates, I'll get paid that much. And then if I do work here, you know, Ariba, I think it was Spacephone. Spacephone to Ariba. I was happy to be among the people who did the due diligence on the takeover from Spacephone to Ariba.
Okay.
And so I was doing those things, and it kept supplementing my income as a journalist. And I had a media house that will let that happen. Okay. And so I know that salary levels are low, and so it's not easy. I know it's not easy, but God's work.
A certain William Nyako just turned up. Said,
"Oh my God, that's my man."
He said, "I heard you say former President Kufuor wanted to kill you. Is that true?"
You what?
He is. I don't know whether it's the William Nyako you're talking about.
Okay.
Because his message, I heard you say, former President Kufuor wanted to kill you. Is that true?
So what happened? I think those were some of the things that got into WikiLeaks when the WikiLeaks thing happened. So, to be honest with you, you remember I said to you that with all those stories, I don't think I competently handled the security of my staff and myself well. So, obviously, that was a big story. The diplomatic community were interested. I'd had a lot of engagement. Traditionally, I've had a lot of engagement with the U.S. Embassy, and so we will receive intel on what was about to happen or what someone had said on or planned to do. I remember. I don't know whether I can say this. Let me think about it for a minute. I remember one day. It took the head of security at the time to ask us not to come to work because some people were really going to hurt us, and he, even though he was the head, he did not know where they were at that particular moment. He did not have, they were supposed to be coming from Kumasi, but he must have lost them on the way somehow, and he was worried that they will end up in Accra and he wouldn't know where they were. So he urged us not to come to work that day, and I had to tell the workers not to come to work. And you know, they were young at the time. All of these guys were young. So it was really, really, some of the things, like I'm saying, I don't even want to say it because people have retired and they're sitting somewhere. You don't want it to look like, so maybe we shouldn't talk about that. maybe. Yeah.
Well, there are several other messages for you. There's someone who is asking how you managed to put together an 11-hour program on radio. That at some point you did 11 hours.
24 hours. We were on. We were here 24 hours. I didn't bath. I was just here. And
when was it? 2008?
Yeah, I think that was 2008. Yeah, 2008. We were here morning, next morning, next morning. I won't bath. We were just sitting here on radio just to make sure that, in my opinion, the right things were done. I will tell you one thing that I've never said. I think eventually I probably made some enemies from there within the NDC, but for me, if something is for a good cause, so be it. So I was here one night. I was here with Roland, and we had now received what, in my opinion, was a very clear indication of what they were going to do to the election results the following day. And so, saying it on radio, yeah, but we needed to take some physical actions. So I went, I think it was around 1 o'clock. Roland is the one that drove me. We went to Prof's office at
the Cuckoo Hill.
Cuckoo Hill.
Okay.
So they were just closed. The whole team was there. They had just closed. They were just about to leave. And so I said I wanted to have a meeting, and Prof said everybody should come back. So then I told them what was going to happen the next day. And so Prof turned to someone and asked him, but then where are the documents to counter this? The document was in Kumasi. And I was mad, like I was really mad and almost a little disrespectful. So they sent this guy, and I've been looking for him. If he's around, I would like to meet up with him. I hear he was one of the Rawlins's bodyguards or something like that. They sent this guy to Kumasi. And how that guy drove his bike from here, went to Kumasi, whether he vanished and he ended up in Accra. He ended up in Accra on the 11th hour, just around the time when Afghanistan was supposed to go and declare the results. And they handed the documents over to him. And that was a turning point in a lot of things. And so I was happy. I enjoyed that program. 24 hours. You remember the siege here? They came.
Famous, yeah.
For the first time. The whole place was. It's just, I enjoy those stuff, and I'm happy. But what should that tell you? They've always been like this. They're never going to change. They were going to come. They tried to close the station down. They didn't. So now they were in power. They got the chance. They closed it down. It's just who they are. I feel very strongly. Look, if you want to kill someone, you can always find the excuse to. So to tell me that there were some infractions, okay. There are infractions in government. Do we remove the government from office because there are infractions? They say when you seek justice, you come with clean hands. So you close a radio station down because they had infractions. There are infractions, thousands of them in government. Do we say because of that we should remove the government? We can't do that. So you will always have an excuse to do things. And I think all the pain they had from all that programs we did is what, in my opinion, somehow when they got the chance, they struck. But that was a very, very difficult time. We stayed here. We didn't go home. We were just excited. But it wasn't like me alone. I think Roland was here, Mohammed Al-Hassan, Suhini joined. It was just a beautiful James Ajenim Boateng. So it became nice. It became a very nice show at the end. But it was a lot of collaborative work.
I think I could speak to you for another hour, but unfortunately, our time is up. And I want to thank you for making time to.
Thank you. Thank you. I never thought I would be back on radio, but when he spoke to me, and I remember he asking me, "Would you want to share your thoughts about the government?" And for me, honestly, I've stopped listening to the government.
Really?
I don't think. Yeah, I don't listen to them anymore. Because, there was a time when your words matter, like what you say to your citizens matter. As a leader, what what you say you are, what you represent should matter to you. Look, 2012, the candidate then was concerned that after Kufuor left 1 Ghana cedi, John and Mills brought it to 2 Ghana cedi, and he thought that was so unheard of. He couldn't live with it. He was going to change it. I have the video. I have the video and the audio. I can play it to you. 1 cedi, $1 to 2 cedis. He thought that was not acceptable. What is the cedi to the dollar now? 7.8. Okay, and they are still proud of it. You remember when the president took office fresh? He actually used to calculate how much money he was saving for the nation by sending projects for public procurement.
Yeah, competitive bidding. Yeah.
What happened? He hired what we have now seen, the most corrupt public procurement officer ever. Baumia was the one that talked about e-levy, that it was unconscionable that people who had been put in authority were thinking about taxing people on the transactions. That e-levy, that even the thought of it was unconscionable. What happened? They were the ones to introduce
Mr. Archer, unfortunately,
so we can leave it. So like basically, I'm happy to be here. Thanks for having me, and I really wish you well. I had to make time for gold because it's our home.
Yeah.
And I'm hoping that we can all be able to support going forward, that we never get closed down again.
Yeah, very, very important. And it's wonderful to see you. I think we should arrange this once again because I didn't get to take your thoughts on what is happening generally.
No, it's okay.
It was so exciting speaking to you about journalism and everything.
That's good.
Mr. Raymond Archer is a journalist I very much respect. And we have to end it here. My name is Senna Nombo, and a big thank you to my team. Ochami Bajumba is up next with the mid-morning show.
Enkrofo fie atenetuo eyade a eya pro na de chance no mu ni se obeye adwuma afimu ni nyina no asa temsika no e de akwa efiewura eno nti e na Mighty Pillars Properties emo okwanya se wonso bra na beye efiewura ye won sase a ne boda fom ewo obom kofi kwei hobo ashalaja suhu samsam amasama agi kotoku domi abra eno sase ni bi nso wo ablekuma oyibi teacher mante